Welcome to the Chapter One podcast, your inside look at the people powering Charlotte's business scene. Real entrepreneurs, real stories right here in the Queen City. Today, we're here with Carrie Lique of Protected Assets Legal. And Carrie, we're happy you're on the show. Let's start with Chapter One. How did you find your way here to the Queen City?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I've been here about 19 years now. I grew up in the Clearwater, Florida area. I went to school down in Florida. When I was in law school, my parents randomly moved to Mooresville. And so did some research, came up for the summer and enjoyed spending my time on the lake and just kind of being in a new growing city. So I came up here right after school, which was in 2007. I've been here ever since.
Nice. So what was life like? I mean, was it instantly into law? Like, was that the direction? What was your professional life like before you found your way into doing what you're doing now?
It was, when I was in school, I just kind of wanted to keep going with my education and had some family members that were attorneys, and it just seemed like a great way to further your education and to use those skill sets for whatever it is I ended up doing. I did not necessarily go to law school I always wanted to be an attorney. I just kind of knew that education would serve me well.
Sure.
And also had some family members that were into real estate investing. So I think that's kind of how I got into the real estate side of the legal profession, is because I was around that a lot growing up and enjoyed kind of that non-litigation kind of atmosphere. So when I first got out of school, I just started with the real estate, practice management, and have been doing real estate and estate planning ever since.
So what you're doing now is you own Protected Assets Law or legal, and that wasn't always the way when it wasn't the first thing you started. So I imagine you took some twists and turns. What was that journey like? How did it start, and how did you make your way to what you're doing now?
Absolutely. So I started in the real estate world, right in the perfect time of 2007, 2008, which when everything kind of went crazy. So in one way, it was great because it showed me a lot of things that I was exposed to as a young attorney that I learned young. And I took a break from real estate practicing for a little bit. I worked at the Charlotte Law School. And when I had my children, I decided I wanted to be back in the Lake Norman area. So I was looking to come back this way. And so I got back into practicing again and have been doing the real estate transactions, commercial, residential, also out of the estate planning. It's something I was always interested in helping people with because it's such a complicated, not fun topic to think about. And so helping folks kind of navigate that process and understand it's not as overwhelming as it needs to be, and getting everything in line really will protect your family.
So what was the transition from doing law to kind of being more of like owning your own thing? Like, because there's a separation there. I imagine it's different for you to go from I'm working in law to now I'm more of an entrepreneur, because now on top of working in law, I also own a company. What was that transition like, and was it everything you expected? Were there differences there?
Yeah, it was really exciting, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you do something for so long and you become good at it, and you become, people come to you as a resource. And so just kind of taking to that next level was just naturally going to happen anyways. And so when I was ready to do that, I just kind of put a good plan into place, and it's been better than I thought it would be. And just having the flexibility on schedule and kind of having the ability to do things in your own way, and say, like, I want to serve my clients this way. I want to serve the community this way. I've got some big goals. I would like to start a nonprofit to kind of give back to the community more in these areas that are underserved. And so it's been exciting kind of thinking through that process and just knowing that kind of can make my own path and how that works out.
Now, when you started this, did you have a backlog of clients? Was that something you were able to kind of bring over, or was that a new hurdle? Was it like I'm kind of starting from the ground up and like I need to go out and find this? And if that was, like, how did you start acquiring those clients? What'd you do?
Yeah, so I've been working in the Lake Norman community for about 15 years now in terms of my client base and my relationships and with my realtors and things like that. So I've had a lot of those relationships for a long time. So those people have kind of stuck with me because I've become their trusted resource, and I'm always kind of make myself available to not just my partners with my realtors, but also my clients. I give everybody my cell phone. I don't, stick to strict business hours. I service my clients, throughout the nights and weekends as well as needed. And so people have come to appreciate that and know that when they have a question or something going on, that they can reach out.
Awesome. So if you were to talk to somebody that's kind of in a similar position or that is that's considering maybe pushing off on their own and starting their own thing, what are some of the hurdles that you experienced, or some of the advice you would give that person, or the advice you would give younger you in those shoes if you could go back and talk to her?
I know, right? Because it's you start to think down that road, and it seems so overwhelming. Because
Yeah.
most of us are so busy doing our day to day job as it is already,
Mm.
and now we're like, oh, how am I going to fit this in, right? So the best thing I did was I got a business coach,
Mm.
Brandy Stamper. She was amazing. She kind of helped me put that plan together. She held me accountable. She kind of helped me think through things at a different level when I was kind of distracted with my real work, and she kind of could get me there. So that would be my biggest advice, is just to find someone who you connect with in that way and let them help guide you to get there. And once you kind of plan it out, it's really not as overwhelming as it really needs to be. And it's exciting because you're doing something for yourself. I've been doing this for almost 20 years. And
Mm.
even now, getting clients that are my own clients are, that hits differently. It's
Yeah.
a different feel. And, you know that you're providing that value to people, and they're trusting you for those items that they need help with.
So 20 years, I'm curious, what's been your favorite part? What is your favorite part about the whole process? I mean, is it the entrepreneurial side? Is it more of like the analytical, law side of things? What's the part that gives you the most energy?
Yeah, I just like helping people.
Yeah.
A lot of times when legal issues come up, people feel scared. They feel overwhelmed. And so just being able to talk things out with people, and one, sometimes see if they even have a legal issue. Even if it's not an area that I typically practice in, I can talk things out with people and point them in the right direction. Sometimes that advice is, hey, go talk to so-and-so. I highly recommend them. Sometimes that's like, that's not really a legal issue that you need to be thinking in that direction about. So just helping guide people through their challenges. It's funny. Sometimes people give me a call, or I'll call somebody for something, and they'll be like, oh, no, you called me, because they think that something's wrong.
I'm in
right?
trouble now.
Yeah.
You caught me.
Exactly. Oh, what's wrong with my file? I'm like, oh, nothing. Sometimes it's just calling to say hi or catch up on something else. But just guiding people through those challenging moments that they come across.
Yeah. So what does the process look like for somebody in the estate law? Like, when do people need you, one, and when they do need you, how does that look like? Well, are they reaching out to you, and is it immediately like you're having to pay to go sit down with them? I know sometimes lawyers work out the way. What does the process look like?
So for me, it's very, very simple. It's just like, let's schedule a call. Let's just chat, right? Like, I provide free consultations to clients, because I feel like charging someone to get, basic information is not necessary. A lot of people do, but I try and just keep it easy. I try to be mindful of people's schedules. So I'll do a free phone consultation, and we'll just kind of talk out, like, let me hear what you're looking for, what your questions are, and I'll kind of give an overview of the various options that they have.
Mm-hmm.
And then if they want some more information, I can send them some follow-up information. They'll fill out some paperwork, and we'll jump on another call, kind of go through it with their more specific details. And then at that point, usually they're ready to proceed with kind of moving forward. And if they're not, I just say, stay in touch with me as you think of more questions, because those things can be overwhelming. But once you get an estate plan in place to protect your family and your business, I work with a lot of small business owners, and they may even have a basic estate plan, but that doesn't connect their business to it. So if something were to happen to them, that business could get tied up in litigation and probate and all these things that will be detrimental, not just to their family, but to their employees and their customers. And so I try and just look at everybody's complete picture and bridge those gaps and make sure there's no holes there, so that if there is an emergency, everything's kind of already set up in a way that makes sense, and that way that's not going to be complicated for people to work through.
Working in law, do you get any weird stories or like situations you find yourself in where you're like, this is wild? Like, do you have any horror stories, or maybe not even a horror story, but just like interesting stories that you thought, this is not exactly what I thought I'd be getting into?
Well, it's funny you say that, because I'm working on two right now, and they're kind of probably not interesting to most people, but they're title issues, right? So they're real estate based title problems with, deed overlaps, or, just certain estate files. And a lot of times I'll have files that people will be trying to sell a home out of an estate. And because they had no estate planning, it becomes a nightmare to do that, because now we've had, several people have been passed on that are in that estate file, and it can be a big challenge to get there. And maybe the family's in foreclosure now because of that. So I like to help kind of fix those problems. So every file is a new file, because they're all a little different. So it's kind of like a puzzle. It's kind of like a game. Like, okay, like how can we get to where we need to be to get them to be able to sell this house. So, usually it's just kind of title issues that come across my way, but they're all unique and they're all interesting. And, people come overwhelmed and scared, and I can help kind of figure out the answer to get where they need to be.
Sure. Well, what are some things that some people in real estate law we'll say struggle with? What are things that other real estate law people do maybe poorly that you've seen as like, hey, I don't want to do that. Like, I feel like there are some examples of it not being done well, and I want to stay away from those things.
Yeah, I think it's just education, right? So there's so many intricacies in just say either estate planning or real estate practice. And I try to educate my clients. I try to educate the realtors that I'm connected with by teaching a lot of classes. I love to teach classes. I'll do a lot of broker opens where I'll go to an open house that maybe an agent's having and teach a class to lots of agents, or I'll go into the real estate firms and teach classes there. And the more we can educate them on all these various issues, then the less likely that they're going to come across an issue, because they're going to be on top of it when they see it. I say, look, your job is not to know all the intricacies of real estate law, but your job is to spot when there's an issue. And if you know how to ask the right questions to your client, if you know kind of the basics, then when that issue comes up, you don't have to know how to solve it. You can call me and I'll walk you through it, but just getting them to identify kind of what those issues are and when they need to be educating their clients and asking their clients the right questions. If you don't ask your clients the right questions, then you're not going to know that until 2 weeks before closing. Well, now it's a little bit too late, or now it's stressful, right? So my goal is to always help agents make that closing process as seamless as possible and as calm as possible for their clients, because that's going to ultimately build their business.
Yeah. What are some of those biggest questions that you get? I mean, what are like the frequent ones where it's like, okay, I always get asked this question, and it's like if there was that obvious thing that you had a second to tell everybody, what is that thing that you're like, stop asking me this? This is my one time to say it. What is that thing?
Yeah, that's a good question. For the real estate side, I would say just kind of understanding how title works and understanding, a lot of times I'll find that spouses aren't on the deed with their spouse. And so that can create problems if one spouse passes away. Now the house has to go to probate. Well, that really shouldn't have been necessary. Another big one is with estate planning. Sometimes people try and use deeds to accomplish estate planning. Oh, I'm going to put my children on the deed with me. I'm going to do this. Well, there's so many reasons why that can go very badly. And so I usually try and educate those people to say, okay, here's why that doesn't make sense. And here's why if we do it this way, you're going to be protected more and things are going to go kind of really down the path of that you want them to go instead.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Carrie, thank you so much for coming on. We love talking to you. And for those of you at home, I'm Greg Prenz, and this is the Chapter 1 podcast.